Welcome into college football with David Pollock and my boy Brent Rollins, like we do every week. We got all kinds of new graphics, man, like getting fancy. We got that little music beforehand, so getting more and more up to date. The tourney's going on. Brent, I don't know what your recollections of the tournament, man, but I remember being a kid and watching the tournament. Now they didn't have all the games, which is really cool now. Like you had to kind of you watched your bracket. Like that's all you really cared about was your bracket, which was fantastic. But so cool that it brings back. It reminds me of being a kid and I remember I couldn't even go to restaurants because my bracket mattered so much, and I had to pay attention and lock in. And I mean, it was just awesome filling those things out.
Well, the biggest thing for me, the biggest difference now versus then is I have no clue who the players are.
Again, new school versus old school.
I'm my casual fan now. I watch the local team. I watch Georgia. I watch West Virginia. I watch, maybe a big game. But yeah, knowing the players, like if they're on one of the other team's schedule, I know them, but that's about it.
We'll get to that. I'm hoping that NIL kind of changes that, because I do think because of the money situation, like the possibility of you getting paid more in college than the NFL, than the NBA, going out and staying. And I think just like Cooper Flagg, I've heard a lot about him, and he's obviously on Duke, and he's going to be the number one pick if he comes out. But I've heard them putting a package together to try to get him to stay. And, listen, that's as simple as I'm putting all my eggs in that basket, paying him out the wazoo, because I'm going to be a national championship contender. I mean, basketball is so different.
Contract.
There's only 5 guys playing at once. I mean, you pay for 2 guys, 2 fifth of your guys are really, really good. Like, you got a chance to be elite. So it is interesting. It is different. Yeah, the stars aren't the same. And I think that's what I liked, when you got to know the guys for 2 and 3 years, and you watched them and you cheered them or cheered against them. Like you loved them or you hated them, which was always the best part. And that part of it definitely is, that part of it's gone.
Yeah. I will say, if folks can see that we actually have the rundown on the bottom of the screen now, which is fantastic, moving up in the world. And the first thing it says there, and the cool part is that you are home, and you are in your home, and you're able to give an update, because like I told you the other day, didn't know if you realized it or not, but the tweet heard around the world, a lot of folks praying, a lot of folks wondering, how's Lindsey doing? So
yeah, you did tell me about that. I did not know. No, everything went great, man. The number one thing was to go in for her tumor in her brain, and was to get it all out, and that was success. So we got to get the majority of the mass out, which was really, really good. And now it's just next steps. Hasn't been fun, all of it. Not gonna lie, it's interesting. It's if you've never experienced, which I haven't. I've never experienced, cancer, and I've never experienced real sickness with my bride or with anybody near me that's really been like that. And it's just, you start to have so much more empathy and sympathy for the other people that have gone through this stuff, because you're like, man, this sucks. Like puking for 48 straight hours. There's nothing worse than that. And trying to get them to get up, trying to get her to get up and walk, and just it was hard, man, because it's like, that's your bride, and that's not really your bride, because of especially the anesthesia. Because my baby doll don't even take Tylenol. Like, she doesn't take nothing. So when she came out of surgery for 6+ hours, I mean, she was knocked out. Like, they come in and hey, you want to get up and move a little bit, and she's like, bam, gone, like nothing. She was. So it's been great. It's a great first step for us. And that video that we put on social media was one of the coolest things ever, because she couldn't open her eyes. Her left side has a little bit of weakness, so she couldn't really use her left side. She couldn't speak, and she still speaks. She's really good at emojis now. Like she's a solid. Like I tell her, she's an emoji, and I'm starting to understand this means go away, because I'm in her space. That means get out of here. Eat, so on, thumbs up, thumbs down, and she couldn't really even put the sentences together, and still struggling to do that now. But that son of a gun, we played. She wanted to hear Rhett Walker. I want to hear Rhett Walker, Goodness of God. as soon as I come out. And I played that song and her eyes are closed and her hands are up praising. And I'm like, holy cow. Like the body's weak, everything's weak, but the spirit was not. Like she was fully there. And that was really, really cool. So I've watched that video like 100 times and, you know, you try not to cry. I'm a tough guy, Brent. So I don't really cry. That's not my style. And
I borderline did. So I'll fully admit that.
You know that everybody who knows me knows that's flagrantly false. But so all good signs were today was the best day by far. Up and moving. We didn't throw up at all today. We found a new trick, by the way, and then we'll get to football. But you know me, I hate sugar. I hate candy. Don't have it. Not something that I have. Not something that we have in the house for our kids. And so, you know, I'm so frustrated after 48 hours of puking and like I'm trying to figure out something, anything. And, you know, somebody said, have you tried candy? And I was like, no. But like at this point, we got it this morning and after, I mean, it was more than 48 hours, honestly. It was almost 60 of straight, you know, throwing up and dry heaving and that stuff. Like, I'm like, I'll try anything. So I'm running around the house this morning at 6:45 because she had gotten up early. And I'm trying to find something. I'm like, Leo, do we not have candy anywhere in this house? And she's like, no, I don't have candy. And I was like, Nicholas, do we not have candy? Like, no. And then Leah went to Nicholas's truck and found a bag of mints, Lifesaver mints. And literally, no pun intended, but came in, gave it to her. And she started having she chewed on the Lifesaver or sucked on it a little bit and literally, bam, gone. And I didn't realize it until today. I actually had a nurse tell me this, like, the suck and nausea mechanisms are kind of similar in the brain and they're very close. And so when you use one, it deactivates the other one kind of is my understanding. And so literally it took it away like that. And then today, every time it was like mint, it was like Lemonhead, which I didn't know Lemonhead was candy. Like, yeah. But
the sugar helps too.
Yeah. But it was crazy. So for anybody out there who's dealing with that, I'm just telling you, man, it worked for us like that and changed our whole thought process. But she's doing fantastic. God is good. It's been fun to watch, and we've got, you know, many more steps and many more hurdles. But she's her spirits are fantastic.
Hurdle one cleared. Power of prayer, faith, spirit, and modern medicine, because that's you went to the best in the country, and
they did so Bebedal. So we went to Duke University for the surgery. So how about this, Brent? Not surprising. We do a family bracket every year. It's just so much fun. Not surprising. Lindsey Hopkins, Duke all the way. Like she was like, Duke wins the NCAA tournament. And she was like, we can start from any other spot as you want, but I'm just telling you, Duke wins.
So that was actually my next question to get to the next thing on our timeline. Were you able to do the family bracket? So obviously, yes. Yep. Because I remember spring break one year, we're watching, I think, Gonzaga play UNC for the national championship, and there was a lot of family bragging rights on the line in that game. So
y'all do it every year too. The Rollins do it in the Rollins household, right?
Yes.
Who'd Braley pick? Who'd your daughter pick?
I haven't looked actually at the pick. She told me. I think Tennessee was one of her, and Tennessee. I don't know if she actually. I haven't looked. I think Tennessee was the only one that I remember her actually telling me. I pride
myself in actually knowing about the tournament and watching, and like I actually do watch college basketball, and because I just love hoops, and my wife's won the last 2 years, so it shows you like it's an absolute crapshoot. Despite what you think, despite what you know, it's crazy. So you know, I always find it fascinating. I'll never forget. Remember Juan Dixon from Maryland?
Yes.
And that was the year I won it, and I was in college and I did it, and it was my mom's pool at work, and it was like a couple $100, and I was never so into the NCAA tournament in my life, and it was fantastic.
So that answers one of the other questions I had. Was that your best bracket?
Yeah, that was my best bracket for sure. It's the only time I've ever won like a big one, a big pool, and I don't know how you feel about this, but I have no problem filling out like 6. That does not bother me. Like,
okay, so that was another question. How many brackets?
Lee, you got a bunch of them, Brent. Like, I know there's a lot of people that go, you're filling out 1 because they collide with each other. But, having the champion is the biggest deal. So I just do the same exact bracket all the way through and then pick the final game different. And then I'll pick the final 4, teams different. So it really stings when I lose a big team. What about you? Are you okay with that? I feel like the smart doctor professor in you, I feel like that's like a no-no for you.
No, I don't mind multiple brackets.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that. I think I actually only picked one at the moment. I think I need to do a little more research, maybe listen to some people who are smarter than me about college basketball, talk about it. So I'm making versus just looking randomly at teams. But I always remember, it was always funny, like when Mike and Mike Golick had the sheets of integrity.
I remember that.
Like go back and forth because he did a ton of them. And Greeny, I think, was the one who said, no, it's one sheet.
No.
I had 2 that I would consider best brackets. One was, it was a thing in the newspaper. Like you win $500 if you pick the final 4 and the total points of the final game. And it was the year that Weber called the timeout.
Oh.
So I had the final 4, and then, Weber calls the timeout, and then they make some foul shots. They make some more foul shots, and Jalen Rose missed a 3, just a random 3. If he makes that 3, I win $500. I was like 3 points off the total.
So do you still hate Duke to this day?
Well, I mean, that was Carolina, right. They played Carolina.
I thought it was Duke when they did the timeout and they lost. No. That was Carolina.
Duke beat them the year before. That was the year before, I think, when they were freshmen. And then the year that Georgia Tech got to the final, when they played UConn and UConn had like a Mecca Okafor, I think, maybe that year. I was in the top 10 in the nation on the Yahoo bracket that year. Like percentile was 99.999. That was I didn't win anything. It was just a random bracket that I did in Yahoo.
That's pretty outstanding. That's hard to do. I'm always blown away by the people that
perfect bracket
that are right. A couple weeks in, I'm like, how the freak is that possible? Like, I don't even get that with the wins. But I'm actually cheering for North Carolina too, by the way, now because of I think all the hate and the vitriol, which you probably are upset because you're a West Virginia, but you know how I am. Like
West Virginia lost their coach too, so it's like double whammy.
I'm so like anti when everybody else says something. So the fact that everyone's like so upset about North Carolina, I want North Carolina to go like 4 rounds now, like just to say, okay, shut up. Like you were all wrong to hate on them. And so here's the thing. It's
karma's probably going to help them make that way.
Well, it drives me. It doesn't drive me nuts. It's very similar to the college football now that we have 12 teams. Like when we're arguing about Ole Miss, Alabama, South Carolina, and whoever those teams are, like right there on the outside, it doesn't matter. It's not egregious. It's not the end of the world. You got like 78 teams for the NCAA tournament, for gosh sakes. Like I'm not going to lose sleep and be upset and pissed off that somebody didn't make it because there's not that many teams anyways. No. And the fact that you're not in the top 78, cry me a river. Like I don't get upset by that. Like I'm not having it.
I agree. So who is your Final Four, by the way?
I don't even remember. I really don't even remember. I have no flipping clue.
I did follow the Lindsey Pollock method there. I picked
Did you go Duke?
I picked Duke to win the whole thing. I had Auburn, Duke, Tennessee, and Maryland.
Okay.
I have no rhyme or reason for why, but just
okay. So here's my thing. To me, there's 2 really good teams, and it's Auburn and Duke, like the 2 consistent. But bro, if you followed this tournament for years, do you trust Auburn? I mean, because I remember watching Yale last year. Like I've seen this movie where Auburn is much better than they perform in the tournament. And I don't know what it is because I don't know basketball well enough. And I love Bruce Pearl. Bruce Pearl is a dude. I love that guy. Like he is an absolute stud. I should text him, by the way. We should get him on the show just to talk college football because I think he'd be fantastic. But do you trust him? Are you willing to say that? And that's the hard thing because you get so many points for extending to that next round and that next round and that next round. And the games mean so much more by getting those. Like you can screw up the first 2 rounds. It doesn't matter. You need those teams to continue. And so that's the hard part is betting on Auburn and because they've just kind of got to you.
Like potentially playing Louisville in Lexington or in Kentucky, in the state of Kentucky. Like that's not
fortuitous.
No,
and Louisville's had a great season. I mean, that's Had a great year. Rick Pitino has been fun to follow. Like that's been cool to see. Like with they showed that little thing about him coaching. Him and Sampson from Houston are really fun to watch. Like that, just like old school guys. And we'll get into this later with spring ball and with Kirby and stuff too, and with his decision, I think. But like that's old school. That's NIL, money, new world, but still old school. And it still works. And I think there are coaches in college football that are still that way, Kirby Smart being one of them, like old school, accountability, dependability, building this. It's really, really hard to do. So it's been fun to follow. It's been fun to follow St. John's. Houston the last several years has been fun because Sampson's won everywhere, but he also is like that dude when he speaks, he's one of those coaches, Brent, when he speaks, I listen. Like, and I coach in different realms. But I feel like I'm always going to learn something from him. And he's going to say something that, oh, God, I love the way he said that. And not surprising, that's why Houston's one of the best teams.
Speaking of old school, that's next on the timeline there. Coach Prime, who this is one of the things I know you and I talked about him and when you went and saw him at Jackson State for game day, but how old school he is as a coach. And he actually came up with something where he was talking about, hey, I'd like to practice against someone for a few days and then have a spring game. What were your thoughts on him sort of saying that and that sort of as a vision or thing that might actually happen? What do you think?
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. And again, I'm going to come at most things from a player perspective. It sucks in spring ball. We talked about that a couple weeks ago. Like, it sucks to hit your own guy over and over and over again. You want to hit somebody else. It brings juice. It makes it more fun. So, and listen, you kind of get on autopilot with your own guys too. Like you know how to play this guy. You know how he uses his hands. So the fact that you get to go against somebody new and challenge yourself, I think it's a great idea. I'm not surprised that the NCAA, won't let you do it because the NCAA that's what they do. Like, it's like they're the no fun. That's just no fun, no nothing. They just take away all the joy and goodness of sport. But I thought it was a great idea. Listen, the NFL has been doing this for a long time.
Right.
Like inter squad scrimmages. That's a real thing. And it's a real thing to bring juice. And it's a real thing to try against different guys, kind of see what you got. And we have the elimination of spring games. So like, why is this? Brent, there's no part about this that I didn't think was a good idea.
Well, and also you think about how the NFL does it now. They'll protect the quarterbacks, obviously. And they're going to go ones on ones or twos and twos in the practice realm. And then when it gets to the game itself, it's a lot of the young guys, things like that. And I think as a college football fan, that's who you want to see. Like the spring game is as much about the guys you haven't seen, the incoming freshman or a transfer versus, hey, I know that guy's a 3-year starter, that sort of thing. So I think it's something that I actually long ago, I think I wrote it actually. I thought the bowl games should be in the spring at one point, and that be kind of a way to get eyes to make it different to where you hit somebody else, all the things that go with that. But former guest of the program, Fran Brown, it's like, hey, Deion, hey, Coach Prime, we got you. We'll come to Boulder for 3 days.
I mean, I think it's smart. I really do. We're losing so much of the fabric of the sport, and it's not like all these traditional rules like need to apply anymore. Again, we're not student athletes anymore. So this is another rule that I hope gets changed. It makes the TV product better, which is a win. How is that not a win for everybody? More people viewing it. The transfer portal obviously would love this too, because you're going to get your eyes on some guys that people would be like, oh, hey, look at that guy. Like I saw him on television. But so I think, because you've already seen what Nebraska, Texas, they're like, we're not doing a spring game. We're done with that. So this could be a way where you give your fans a better experience. But more importantly to me is you get more practices against a different opponent that makes you better. And that's what you want as a coach.
Yeah, you want to see. You want to learn something. And that's – speaking of Fran Brown, by the way, saw a video from him yesterday that I thought you'll like. He has a policy as a coach that his players must save 40% of their NIL checks. And the quote was, there's no way, and this is from Ashley Winskowski, does TV up that way, no way as a coach that I'm going to pay you a lot of money and then you're going to walk away from here with no money. talked about his upbringing, all that sort of stuff. I thought that was fantastic.
I think that's the part that, listen, I'm not gonna lie, it took me a long time to get on board with paying players, like it did, and because I also was someone who I didn't feel like I got cheated. I feel like I got like an unbelievable 4-year experience that changed my life and changed my family's life. It changed everything about me, and I was excited and I loved it. I didn't feel like I got shafted. But here's the thing. I said from the beginning, like, I'm fine with you giving these guys some money, but let's put it in a trust. Like, let's not give, because I know what I would have done. I'd have had a bigger screen television, a nicer video game, nicer internet, a nicer
speaker
phone
system, all the above.
All those things. I would have pissed it away. And I had plenty of teammates that I know what they would have bought. Cars, bigger rims, speakers in the truck would have been bumping louder. Like, and we would have pissed it away. And so that, I think, trying to find a happy medium, you're trying to protect the players. Like, when is that ever a bad thing? That's a good thing. Just like them, getting educated with financial planners and taxes and all the stuff that they're because they're kind of in the real world. And here's the thing that sucks. The things that sucks is you've seen for a number of years. Brent, what's the worst part of sports? Like youth league sports, what's the worst part? Consistently. Parents. 100%. It's parents. Well, here's now. Like a lot of people used to look at their kid as a meal ticket. Well, now even more parents do that because it's a broader spectrum. It used to be NFL, which is the gate is narrow, bro. Right. Like you're trying to needle that thing. You're trying to throw a dart in a tornado and hit a dartboard. And then now though, like, okay, wait a minute. I can go make $500,000 a year in college. Like that's big money. That's a meal ticket. Yes. That's my meal ticket. So now you thought youth league sports was crazy in the past. Like now it's going to be even more nuts. And there's going to be more, people going crazy in that spectrum, which I can't stand because I want kids to be kids and play the sport and build those things. But we've done this and it's not going to change.
Spring ball, though, is going on, and there is news and sort of talk and the hot issue coming out of camp or something like that, which Coach Prime, by the way, now has another former professional athlete and coach on his staff.
Marshall Faulk.
I don't know if you saw. He's one, but they hired Byron Leftwich.
Nice. Lefty, your West Virginia boy.
Yes. Former Marshall QB and Bucks OC, all sorts of things. So he's on the staff now. So yeah, Marshall Faulk's there, Warren Sapp's there, among some other ones that are there that played in the league. But
I think that's so good too. That's so good for Colorado because you've got to be different. And why not? Like you're basically bringing these guys in that a lot of times wouldn't coach in certain atmospheres because they don't want to hit the road and go all over the place and do X, Y, and Z. Well, you don't have to do that with Deion. Like you can chill. You don't have to be as aggressive in that area because he's made it very clear, like, you come to me. Like, I'm not coming to you.
Yeah.
And you bring credibility and star power. And you've seen the sidelines at Colorado. Like, the sidelines it's like a superhero convention. I mean, just unbelievable amount of people that, like The Rock, Kevin Durant. Like, every week you're seeing rappers and influencers, and that's smart. That's good. That's good for business. That's great for Colorado if they want to sustain this success, which I think is going to be difficult post Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders.
So some spring ball headlines. By the way, Juju Lewis, freshman quarterback, one of the top
big time quarterback
in the country, has he's been making some highlight throws on social media. But obviously, when you look at what people want to know about, or the sort of the questions that get answered out of spring ball or want to see, is about the quarterbacks. So I've seen things with Ohio State and the way the ball jumps off of Julian Sayan's hands.
Best I've ever seen. Unbelievable. Most talented quarterback, top 5 quarterback of all time. Like, it's that season. Because here's what we love to do. We want to build them up. Oh my gosh, did you see that? Did you see that? First start, first this, and then rip them to shreds. That's the absolute model of what. That's exactly what tends to happen. But before you're there, man, you are the greatest thing ever. And listen, you do watch him throw, and you can tell he's got stuff. And listen, if you play quarterback at Ohio State, like, who's the last guy that was bad? I mean, it's a pretty dang safe bet. That was
good
very equivalent to Lincoln Riley back in the day when if I was Lincoln Riley, I literally just walked in a room with a commitment letter, and I was just like what? Here you go. Just like, do you see what I do? Like, how many golden stiff arms do I need to produce? Like, this is what I am. This is who I am. You want to be the number one pick? Okay, well, hold on. Let me call this guy. Let me call Kyler Murray. Let me call Baker. I mean, stupid, right? Like, just on and on and on of guys that he is a part of.
Another one, Austin Mack, who came with Kalen DeBoer from Washington to Bama, turning heads and being a real threat to the QB job there. What's some conversation, though, I think can get on the realm of way too positive. And maybe it's real, and we're going to see if it's real in the fall. But Warren Brinson, former Georgia defensive tackle, at the pro day that Georgia had last week, dubbed true freshman Elijah Griffin as the next Jalen Carter. That's one where you're like, be careful putting that on a young kid like that. But that's some high praise.
He gonna be the truth. He's gonna be the truth. Like he's gonna be ridiculous. Like, and that is fun to. And so I'm going to give you a sneak peek into the locker room. So like as an upperclassman, you know, you've been there several years. You've seen a lot of stuff. And as soon as the new guys come in, you're immediately placing bets. It's like, all right, who's my guy? Who's my guy? Like, and for the linemen, you literally go, I don't want to say that on the broadcast because I'm a good Christian man. I'm not going to swear, but butt to ankle ratio is always a big deal. Like what kind of, okay, huge butt, nice skinny ankles, athletic. Like you immediately start bidding on your horses and you start, it's fun, man, because those kids come in and you start to see what's inside this chest really quickly. And it's different for a lot of people. And that guy's different. He's going to be just fine. But it is fun to watch how guys handle the spotlight, practices, difficult things. And a lot of times, man, you kind of see it right away. It's like it's like you walk in the gym with a guy that can shoot the piss out of the basketball. You're like, okay, like that's different. And you know as a player from being around it. And so Warren Brinson, you know, seeing it again, he's also outside of the locker room, so he can say that. If he was in the locker room, he'd probably be like, yeah, I don't know, he's doing pretty good. Like, trust the process. But it's part of it.
So speaking of someone who's not very positive, though, that would be Kirby Smart. And he was quite grumpy recently about, we're not good enough. We're not in shape. These young guys aren't in shape. We've got so far to go. We're so young. All that. He was sort of typical, I would say, typical Kirby Smart in terms of downplaying everything.
By the way, if I'm a Georgia fan, that's what I pay for. That's exactly what I pay for. You never heard Nick Saban being like, man, we're good. Like, Nick Saban took every opportunity, and Nick is the GOAT. Like, Nick is the greatest coach of all time. He took every opportunity to talk to the media, to send a message to his players. That's why he did it. That he looked right into the camera, and he was like, da-da-da, and he did his hands like this and trust the process. And but he came in with a distinct message to send to his players because he knows that everybody's reading it. They're going to send clips. They're going to be on social media. All those clips are going to pop up. They're going to show up. It's going to be there with you. Like, that's 100% a part of the whole process. And so I'm not surprised. And this is not an easy world, man. Like you used to have to deprogram kids and de-recruit them from telling them how great they were for a couple years in high school. And now, you know, you're paying them. So it's a little bit different. It's a different way to handle a situation. But again, Rick Pitino, because we're talking about the bracket, Rick Pitino and Kelvin Sampson, like that's what I want, man. If I'm picking a coach, like I want a guy that's going to hold your feet to the fire. And NIL be danged, money be danged. Like, I need you to understand that you are a cog in this wheel, but we are bigger than you. And get in line, do your job, work hard, or get the freak out of line, right? I mean, that's where I think it's good to have a coach like Kirby, and I like what he's saying. And I mean, the other news too, the GM thing. What did you think about that, by the way? I thought that was really interesting.
Where he said it didn't really need that. We've got all kinds of people that are doing things. Didn't shock me, honestly. And one of that is because you know the depth of the people that they have, I guess you could say, on the payroll, and all the various roles that they have. And I think also when you have someone like himself who's has a clear mindset and vision of all these things and what he wants it to look like and the players and all the things, every piece of the program.
It doesn't surprise you, but do you like it is my question. Would you rather have a GM, or do you think Kirby doing it and via multiple people doing it?
It's one of those, at this point, why would you go against what he's done and what he's been doing? And I think the fan base often says in Kirby, we trust, that sort of thing. I think that's an easy thing to fall back on, kind of like with Nick. When Nick hired Lane and it was different outside the box, you're like, I think he's pretty good and know what he's doing. I think it's different. I think the world we live in is different, but I think Kirby's, and I'm just telling you this from like going inside the curtain, and you've seen this because we've been up there at practice. There's not a coach in America that's more hands-on. Like there might be some that are close, and there might be some that are in it like that. Kirby's in special teams meetings answering questions. I'm not lying. He is in special teams meetings in the front row or close to it, and he is dialed in listening because it's important to him. And when it's important to you, it's important to your players. Like if it's important to you, it's important to your flipping players. And so I think he is one of those guys that has a pulse on every single thing. Offense, defense, special teams. He's sitting on the sidelines in the headset, and he's talking, and he knows formations. If somebody's offside, if somebody's supposed to be on, supposed to be off, he's yelling at him. Like that's not normal. A lot of people are, I'm the head coach, you handle the offense, you handle the defense. I'll kind of intermittent sometimes. And so I'm not surprised he did it either. But, Bill Belichick, Michael Lombardo, that's Lombardi.
Jim Nagy, Lombardi. Yeah. Jim Nagy goes to Oklahoma. Like right. Bill Belichick, did it right away because of the NFL system. But like these different schools, we talked to Texas Tech not too long ago with Coach McGuire, right. And just that's a big deal for them, was having a GM. And so it's kind of contrary to what everybody else is doing. Everybody else is hiring GMs and letting them handle that. And, I think Kirby is getting paid a lot of money. And we're now in a salary cap era of college football, by the way. It's $20.5 million starting in July. So, you get to allocate your funds. But I think him being able to run it and handle it is not surprising because he's wanted that from the beginning. It's the reason why he didn't go to South Carolina or Auburn, which both offered him jobs, and he said no to because he wanted to run it. Because if he was going to do it, he was going to do it his way, and he was either going to succeed his way or fail his way.
It still reminds me of, especially with the way you're talking, just his comments on spring and all that, reminds me of the first time I met him in person. That was at the basketball court. And I told him, I said, yes. And I said, hey, I said, I also happen to work for PFF. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's right. You're the guy who props them up, and then I got to bring them back down to earth.
My favorite thing about that was during COVID, right? Like that
it was.
Kirby, and I remember texting him back and forth. I was like, hey, man, like you could lose a few LBs. You've gotten a little bit large. And he came and started playing basketball with us. But my favorite part about it was Kirby in pickup basketball is the same guy that's on the sidelines at Georgia. Like he's coaching people what to do. He's like, you need to do this. You need to do that. Like, get up on the screen. What are you doing? Like, compete harder. And I'm like, these are 40-year-old men. I mean, literally, it was 40-year-old old man basketball, yes. But it mattered. And that's why Kirby's so dang good.
Yes. Competes at everything. Speaking of competing, you competed on the video game, and you call on the video game. And one of the interesting things about that happened during the time frame that we were away is the money that the players can get from the EA Sports College Football game went up from $600 to $1,500. I thought that was good, and it's sort of it's at what point does it stop? I think it's going to keep going up potentially, and then also the cover photo that kind of got leaked. Did you hear any stories or anything about that, or was that something that you saw that and you were shocked?
Oh, I was shocked because they keep a lid on it.
We had this whole discussion about who's going to be on the cover.
We had a
discussion. By the way, I think everybody that we talked about was in that picture.
Yeah, which is great. Which is obviously we're doing our part of, which is good. But it's. They are very, they'll show me material when we're doing stuff. And they're like, listen, this is not to get out. They don't do this like that. They're and listen, this is their game. They take a lot of pride in it, and they should take a lot of pride in as much time and energy and effort they put into it, and as great of a game as it is. So this was definitely not something that was a good thing. Like that, this absolutely will tick them off. But you can't help it when people are posting things, and that's a hard thing. But like, you don't know any different either as a player, but you do. But you see it all the time with players in the locker room post game, and they're doing stuff, and you're like, "What are you doing?" Like that. Do you realize how bad of a look that is for your team? Like there's nothing good about this. Yes, you're getting people to watch, but from a team standpoint, this is not helping us.
Like Rich Rod when he said, "Hey, we want, like hard edge is our who we're about," and dancing on TikTok maybe not necessarily jiving with that. But I will say, the photo that was put out there that had some coaches in it as well, including Kirby Smart, James Franklin, and players. The two players that were front and center were the two that you picked to be on the cover of the game when we did our conversation about that, and that was Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith.
I mean, I was shocked when you didn't. Like, I understand where you went, but like my mind went like immediately. SEC, Big Ten, the two biggest playmakers in all of college football. Like, it just made perfect sense. Like receiver, north south. Like everything about it clicked and made sense. And I'm going to stay in that lane even with that leak. I still think those two are going to be the focal point of everything. And honestly, the way they played last year, Ryan Williams to start, thank God he's 18, and then Jeremiah Smith to finish, right? Like they were the highlights of the season.
Last thing, have a little fun to end. It was a tweet that was on your account recently. Is looking at some logos, and when you see a logo, what is it that, let me get the wording, is like first college football moment that comes to mind when you see a logo? And the one that was on the Twitter account was the Hogs, the Arkansas
Pig Sweet.
So there was a lot of response to this. What's your answer in terms of what's the first moment that comes to mind when you see this?
Well, it's interesting because we played Arkansas, in that time period, but it was like, to me, it's Darren McFadden, Felix Jones, Peyton Hillis. Like it was that 100 Matt Jones, like it was that era, like Houston Nutt running the rock, like Arkansas finding a way to compete with everybody in the SEC when they didn't have near the talent as everybody else. Like immediately, that's the plays that came to mind.
So for me, and just my own sort of lifetime frame, that I agree. The wild hog with McFadden and his running style and the way he borderline carried some of those teams, and then the combination with him and Felix Jones, like that's exactly where I went to. A lot of the fan base, I think, went to the Sterner fumble that was depicted in the movie about Burlsworth kid when they at Tennessee, and I think they actually used some of the footage from the game in that movie. But yeah, that was where a lot of people went. Matt Jones beating LSU, that was a big one.
6 overtimes.
It was I can't remember how many, but it was definitely a good bit of them.
I think it was 6.
Some folks went to I got some responses. Jimmy Johnson, Jerry Jones, Barry Switzer. Okay, those didn't beating Oklahoma in the 1978 Orange Bowl. Like, so old school more so old school memories. Some went with the more comedic response. If you can maybe guess which one I'm talking about there, maybe an infamous picture as it relates to Arkansas. I think that's their current OC in the brace.
The neck brace.
Petrino, a lot of folks went there, unfortunately. But no, I agree that McFadden and some folks, like Ross says in the chat, went immediately to, hey, we're in basketball time frame. Give me Nolan Richardson and some of those teams.
40 minutes of hell.
Yes, all of that with
That's pretty
basketball.
dope.
That's where a lot of
I
people
think that's
given the time frame.
I think that's the beauty of the post too. Like, what college football moment comes to mind? But like, there's going to be a lot of people that have the basketball moments. That's if you, especially if you think basketball first, but even the university, like there's just it's such a great open-ended question. And again, fans are what drive this sport, what make this sport different, unique, and the best. And this, like, when you get the insight into their brains, I think it's fantastic. Like, it's so cool. That's why I love to give them shout outs on here, like any chance we can with that kind of stuff, because I think it's the reason that the sport runs. It's the reason that people listen to stupid humpies like us talk about college football, because they can't get enough of their sport, man. Like, they love it that much, and they love being talked about. And, we're going to try to get Sam Pittman on too. I think that'd be a good guest to get on.
May or may not have Coach Pittman here soon. What was it? Was it Todd Day? Was that the guy, the shooter that was on those teams with Nolan Richardson? It was really good when they won the championships. I think that was who it was. He was. I want to say.
I just remember him and his style and them pressing and like just being all up in your face, like, and just.
I think that's how basketball should be played, but that's my opinion.
They had number. Who was the big sucker? 34 Williams. Was it
Corliss Williamson?
Corliss Williamson was a baller.
Yes,
he was good, but they were. Yeah, they were a fun. And again, like that's the tournament. I remember those moments watching them in the tournament and cheering for them. Like, I just to swing it full circle right back to the top of the show with the tourney, man. Yes. It's just that's what's the March Madness feel, and it's just different, and it's cool, and it's something that's traditionally just every year. And again, I think the brackets make it even sweeter because it gives you something to, just like fantasy football for the NFL, like that killed it for the NFL. Like, the brackets for March Madness are what make it bigger and better, because everybody wants to know where they stand. And then you do leaderboards and you see these Cinderella runs that are just cool as crud.
Did you have any traditions, like even in college, in terms of watching?
No, I guarantee you did. But like, there are so many people that, and quarterbacks, obviously, and offensive players, I think more than defensive players, the amount of we could do a whole show on that, like superstitions, and it's crazy in a locker room. Like, I don't care how I put my pads on. I don't do anything. I don't think about that crap. It's not something that enters my small brain can only focus on so many things. And that was never one of them. I'm like, I don't give a rat's butt if I wash this shirt, if I wore the same socks. The fandom of college football would be great. That's a tweet that we're going to send out. What's your game day tradition that is it's not negotiable, right? Like, this has to happen. People sitting in the same chairs. I'm like, oh, when I got up, it went bad. It wasn't because of your chair. That had nothing to do with it, but it is awesome to see that. Did you have any as a player or anything like that?
Sadly,
you're so smart. You had to have something.
So sadly, I did wear the same undershirt in football all through high school.
Every game,
by the way, except for one, and that would be the game that I ruined my elbow in a scrimmage my senior year.
So you believe it big time, don't you? You're even big on that curse.
So, which, I mean,
did you wash the shirt, or did you wash the shirt?
It was definitely washed. It wasn't like it wasn't that sort of thing.
Bro, I've seen pants that would stand up on their own in a locker room because they refused to wash them. Like, literally, you
threw them on the back of the big fans, just to
100%. The big fan, and it smelled atrocious. Their locker room smell is one of the most distinct smells you will ever smell in your life. High school locker room, every time I walk in, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, just flooding back for our North Oconee Titans. It floods me back to Shiloh High School, to Georgia, to the Bengals. Yeah. Like, the locker, and my wife, we go up there on Sundays and we'll bring stuff to the field house and we'll clean up all the mess in there a lot of times. And she was like, how do you not smell that? How does that not make you gag? I'm like, what? And like, the locker room, I'm like, babe, that's normal. Are you kidding me?
That's
like,
normal.
That was a day that ended in Y. Like, nobody worried about that. So, but it was it was cool though. We'll put some more of those tweets out. Those are good.
By the way, in my current realm, I actually get that smell every now and then. at the end of the semester when it's finals week and students are literally just sleeping on campus and never going home the entirety of finals week.
I never did that. I went home and slept just fine.
That was not your thing. One thing I was going to ask, like, we went to Vegas a few years ago for the draft. I would think it would be cool to be in Vegas for like the first couple of days of the tournament with just numerous games on,
and you could bet
environment. I mean, if you so choose to, if that's your thing, yeah.
It's not my thing.
I think it would be fun.
Yeah, I think that would be kind of fun. Well, we just set it up. Freaking go do it, bro. That'd be a fun thing to do.
Next off season.
I'm a atrocious gambler. Like, you have to be able to, like, scared money don't make money. I'm scared. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I will testify right now. I'm a competitive human being in everything I do. Gambling sucks, and I hate it. And I literally am just waiting. It's gambling and golf, the two G's, are the only thing that I probably think way too much when I compete in. And I just try not to lose as opposed to try to go out and dominate. Because if I win $100, I'm like, ooh, we putting that over here. Like, ooh, that ain't, we gonna keep playing, but that ain't gonna get touched. And the next thing you know, you're like, what happened to my money? I mean, like, how did I just lost 17 hands in a row? I mean, how is that possible? Like, and then I have several buddies, and I will not mention their names, Tony, that will bet and gamble, and like, I'm sweating. Yes, he's gonna pull that slot machine,
pull that lever
for a couple $100 or something. I'm like ticking. At 1, 2, 3. That's over $1,000. Like, it is way too hard to make money. That's $1,000. That's $1,000. Like, oh my gosh, I can't do it. I suck at it. I'm an awful gambler because I am not willing to, like, keep pushing my chips in the middle because I know it's inevitable. I'm going to lose. These chandeliers are nice for a reason, and it's not going to be because of me.
One of these days, next off season. So we'll say, in honor of the tournament, we are going to switch up the schedule a little bit. Next few weeks, go Mondays and Wednesdays. So folks that are joining on Twitter and or YouTube, we'll be here Mondays and Wednesdays for the next few weeks. And most importantly, as Ben says, hope your wife is recovering well.
Thanks,
Glad that you're home. And that's the most important thing. We're going to have some fun a few hours a week.
On the flip side, though, because there's plenty more to talk about. I'm texting with Pittman. We're going to get Marcus Freeman. Like, we'll get a bunch more coaches. I think it's perfect to get coaches this time of year just because they're way more life is not as stressful right now for a lot of these coaches. So it's really fun to talk to them and pick their brain about their programs and going forward. But it's college football all the time. We appreciate y'all. Thanks for listening.